Most welcome to Historiespanarna History Reconnaissance and Normandy in France, July 1944. D-Day is more than a month away. The Allies have consolidated their foothold in France, and the Battle of Cherbourg is over. The important port has fallen, although utterly destroyed. The Allied breakout to the south and east is still in the balance. The images that we have compiled show the slow advance and build-up just behind the front lines. By the end of the following month, Paris and most of northern France would be liberated after 4 years of German occupation. And please, like, share and subscribe. It means a lot to us.
Good evening. The news from France tonight is good, better than it has been at any time since D-Day. American troops have captured Saint-Lô on the western end of the Normandy battlefront, and the British and Canadians have broken through German defenses in the Caen sector directly to the east of Saint-Lô. The American capture of the big port of Cherbourg was of immediate vital importance because it gave the invasion forces a strategic base from which men and supplies could pour into the expanding beachhead. But today's developments are of great importance because of what they mean in the future. From the capture of Saint-Lô and the breakthrough southeast of Caen may come the big drive that will carry the Allied armies to Paris, and from there on to Germany.
The number of German soldiers surrendering after D-Day was initially low, 15,000 after 12 days. For the whole month of June, the number was 47,000. These soldiers and sailors doesn't look too sad, more relieved, realizing that they had survived the war and not ending up in Soviet captivity. On the morning of June 9, 1944, General Eisenhower announced that for the first time since 1940, Allied air forces were operating from France. Within 3 weeks of D-Day, 31 Allied squadrons were operating from beachhead bases. During the first 90 days following D-Day, 74 airfields and airstrips were in use or being constructed. This was achieved with advanced landing grounds. They could be installed very quickly, transforming a cultivated field into an aerodrome, sometimes in less than 24 hours. This was done with prefabricated materials. The most widespread of them was the pierced steel plank, or PSP, a perforated steel plate 3 meters long and 40 centimeters wide. Another, less costly system was the square mesh track, an easy-to-use square steel wire mesh that used a lot less steel than the PSP. In their forecast for the first 3 months following D-Day, the planners plotted the number of the advanced landing grounds that would be required in Normandy to support the Allied air forces up to September 1944. Using maps and aerial photographs, individual sites were surveyed and plans drawn up, so that when each location was captured, either U.S. Aviation Engineers, the Royal Engineers, or Royal Air Force Airfield Construction Wing could move in without delay to construct them.
officers said tonight that the German 7th Army, assigned to hold the Allied troops within their Normandy beachhead, had suffered a major defeat, and that the events of the past 10 days had given the American, British, and Canadian forces in France their first big victory. This high staff officer said that since D-Day, the Allied troops in France had virtually eliminated 13 German divisions, and no army could stand to lose the number of prisoners alone that the Germans have lost to us without suffering a major defeat. The British staff officer paid special tribute to the American forces now roaming Britain. The Americans have been remarkable in exploiting their gains through very tough country, he said. Then he added, we can learn a lot from them. This high British officer, who is in a position to know the complete picture of the war, painted the most optimistic picture that we have had since we've been here in France. He said that the Germans appeared to be establishing a series of fortress areas around the important Brittany ports, which the American forces are now threatening. The Germans are carrying out demolition in these ports. And in addition to a great land victory, the American tanks in Brittany also have won one of the war's greatest naval victories. The capture of the Brittany port will wipe out Hitler's main U-boat and E-boat bases and force a complete change of German naval strategy. However, the Germans are expected to fight bitterly for their now cut-off fortress ports. It is impossible to be anything but extremely optimistic at the present stage of the war.
One of the many field hospital units deployed to Normandy was the US 51st Field Hospital. Activated on September 10, 1943 at Camp Bowie, Brownwood, Texas. On June 8, 1944, after a number of fruitless attempts to land, the hospital finally came ashore in the Easy Green sector, Omaha Beach. 2 landing craft tank and 1 landing craft infantry carried vehicles, officers, and enlisted men ashore. Aside from a half-track being blown up by a mine, the move to the assembly area at the top of a hill beside Easy Green Beach was uneventful. For the following day, there was not much to do but to dig in and take cover for the constant sniping and repeated air attacks at night. Aside to some damage to vehicles and equipment, no casualties were sustained. On June 10th, almost 100 tons of equipment and supplies were brought ashore by amphibious duckweeds. The nurses' complement arrived off the French coast on June 11th aboard the Liberty ship Francis Drake. The hospital's personnel gradually became used to the sound of aircraft, bombs, artillery fire, and the fighting not far away. The job was to get as close as possible to the front in order to do the repair work on the many casualties and send them on to the evacuation hospitals as soon as possible. Officers were to work 12-hour shifts and handle about 50-man groups of patients. During that particular period, the organization was given a new drug, still in the experimental stage, designated penicillin.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.